I am 118 pounds. I stand at 5 feet 7 inches, and I have not tracked a single calorie in over 5 years. Yet my body composition has never been better. My energy runs completely clean from morning to night, and my visceral fat is essentially non-existent according to my last DEXA scan. And I want to walk you through the exact foods I keep stocked every single week, because this is not a diet. This is not a 30-day program. This is genuinely just how I eat and live. And I am going to show you my fridge and my freezer in full detail, shelf by shelf, drawer by drawer, so you can see the real thing. Not a curated aesthetic shot, but the actual contents of my kitchen right now. And yes, my partner eats a slightly broader range of foods than I do, so you will see a few things in here that are his. But I will always tell you whose is whose, so there is zero confusion. And let's start right here at the top of the fridge, because this first shelf alone could genuinely change your metabolic health if you made the swap today. So I have my raw fermented cottage cheese right here. And if you have never had raw cottage cheese before, just know that it tastes absolutely nothing like the watery, bland tubs you grab at the grocery store. This is thick and rich and almost tangy, and I go through about 1 full jar every single day, sometimes a bit less if I am eating a wider variety that day, but it is one of my most consistent staples. And the reason I specifically choose raw and fermented over conventional is that the lactase enzyme is still alive and active in raw dairy, which means even if you have historically been sensitive to dairy or even fully lactose intolerant like I was, fermented raw dairy is a completely different experience for your body and your gut. I had zero dairy tolerance before I made this switch, and now I digest it flawlessly with zero bloating, zero discomfort, and zero of those awful inflammation symptoms I used to experience constantly. Next to it, I keep a fresh block of raw, grass-fed butter, and I want to take a second to talk about why the color of your butter actually matters. If your butter is white or very pale yellow, that is a signal that the animal it came from was not eating a diet rich in green living grass. The golden, deep yellow color you want to see comes from beta-carotene, a fat-soluble compound that transfers directly from the pasture into the fat of the animal and then into your butter. So when you see that rich golden hue, you know you are getting a nutritionally superior product. And I keep mine on a plate right at eye level so I never forget to use it. I cook with it, I put it directly on my steak. I sometimes just take a small bite of it plain because the flavor of high-quality, raw, grass-fed butter is genuinely one of the most satisfying things I have ever tasted. It has this deep, creamy, almost nutty flavor that pasteurized butter just cannot replicate. And right next to the butter, I keep my egg container. I source my eggs from a local farm, and I go through a significant number of eggs each week because eggs are one of the most bioavailable, nutrient-complete foods on Earth. The yolk especially is extraordinarily dense in fat-soluble vitamins, choline, which most people are severely deficient in, and a fatty acid profile that supports brain function and hormone health in ways that are measurable and real. And now I want to get into the cheese section of my fridge because I have several varieties and they are all raw. I have a raw Colby, a raw sharp cheddar, a raw smoked Gouda that I absolutely love for its depth of flavor, and a raw soft goat cheese, which is the gentlest option if you are newer to raw dairy, because the fat molecules in goat's milk are naturally smaller and easier on the digestive system. All of these are unpasteurized, which means the naturally occurring beneficial bacteria are still intact, and the enzymes that help break down the proteins and fats are still active. And I will always check labels because the word natural or even organic does not mean raw. You have to specifically see the word raw or unpasteurized on the label. And even then, I cross-check the ingredients panel to make sure. Now moving through the middle of my fridge, I have my bone broth, and I keep multiple jars on hand at all times because I make it myself in my Instant Pot using the most collagen-dense cuts I can find: oxtail, chicken feet, pig's feet, and beef knuckles. And I pressure cook them for about 60 to 70 minutes, which extracts the maximum amount of gelatin and glycine and proline from the connective tissue. And when it cools in the fridge, it should set up like actual Jell-O. And if it does not set, you either did not use enough collagen-rich cuts or you did not cook it long enough. The gelatin content is what makes bone broth so powerful for skin elasticity, joint recovery, gut lining repair, and even sleep quality, because glycine is a calming amino acid that directly supports melatonin regulation. And I have noticed a significant difference in my sleep depth on the nights I have a cup of warm bone broth before bed. I also have sparkling water in here at all times because once you clean up your diet, your taste buds genuinely reset, and plain sparkling water becomes one of the most refreshing, satisfying drinks you can imagine. I add a small splash of citrus to mine sometimes, and that is truly all I need. I am not craving sodas or sweetened drinks at all, and that is not willpower. That is just what happens to your palate when you remove processed sugar from your life consistently. My partner keeps his fresh pressed orange juice in here, and a few other things I will not judge because his diet is his own. Moving to the bottom drawer, I have a beautiful selection of proteins that I cooked in bulk earlier this week. I have beef short ribs that came out of the Instant Pot, falling apart and deeply gelatinous, grass-fed beef bacon from a regenerative farm with no added sugar and no fillers. Lamb sausage, which has a rich, gamey depth of flavor that I find incredibly satisfying. Pasture-raised chicken wings, skin on, which are one of my favorite high-fat protein sources. And several packs of ground beef that I keep loose and ready to cook at any moment. Because ground beef is honestly the most practical carnivore staple you can keep in your kitchen. It cooks in under 10 minutes. It is incredibly versatile. And when you are sourcing grass-fed, grass-finished 80/20, the fat content means it stays juicy and satisfying without needing any additional fat added. And this brings me to something I want to talk about very directly, which is the cost of eating this way. Because I know that is the number one reason people tell me they cannot do it, and I understand that completely. Quality meat has become genuinely expensive at the grocery store, and I have been very openly vocal about this for years now, which is exactly why I want to tell you about Wild Pastures, because they have solved this problem in a way that I actually believe in. Wild Pastures is a meat delivery service that sources 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef, pasture-raised pork and chicken, and wild-caught seafood exclusively from American regenerative farms. And they have kept their prices up to 40% lower than comparable grocery store or delivery service options consistently for the past 4 years. Even through inflation, their farmers never use antibiotics, hormones, or pesticides. They practice rotational grazing, which means the land actually regenerates instead of being depleted. And they source all of their wild-caught seafood from Bristol Bay, Alaska, which is one of the most pristine fisheries on the planet. What I love most about the model is that you customize your own box, so you only receive exactly what you want, and it gets delivered directly to your door. No hunting through grocery store labels, no guessing whether something is actually quality or just marketed as quality. And for everyone watching right now, they are offering 20% off, plus an additional $15 off your first box at wildpastures.com/mylink, which I will put in the description. Okay, now let me take you to the freezer because I keep a significant amount of protein stored here to make sure I am never in a position where I have nothing good to eat and I end up making a bad choice. I have wild-caught salmon skin on, which I either bake or sear in tallow, and the skin crisps up beautifully and provides an incredible amount of omega-3 fats and fat-soluble vitamins. I have more ground beef and some beef shanks that I will slow cook in the Instant Pot to make a deeply gelatinous, rich, broth-based meal. I have some carnivore bars in here, which are essentially just grass-fed beef and beef fat pressed into a bar, and I keep them frozen because the texture is better cold and they last longer. I have backup frozen bone broth for emergencies. And yes, there is some of my partner's frozen basil and a bag of his chips back there that are at least seed oil free, which I can appreciate even if they are not my thing. I also want to show you the one kitchen tool I recommend above everything else, which is my air fryer with a ceramic, non-toxic insert. I use it for almost everything: steaks, chicken wings, even egg-based recipes. And cleanup takes about 90 seconds because nothing sticks to ceramic the way it sticks to conventional coatings. And finally, my pantry staples, which include grass-fed tallow for high-heat cooking, because tallow has a smoke point well above what most plant oils can handle, which means you are not oxidizing your cooking fat and creating inflammatory byproducts. I also have a good ghee for medium heat cooking, a sugar-free mustard, and some fermented vegetables for my partner, because as Dr. Liana has explained extensively, fermented foods of any kind, whether animal or plant-based, have a fundamentally different effect on the gut microbiome than their raw or cooked counterparts, due to the probiotic content and reduced anti-nutrient load. And that is genuinely everything in my kitchen right now. This is not aspirational. This is just Tuesday. This is just what my refrigerator looks like when I open it on any given day of the week. And if you want to build toward this kind of eating, the most important thing I can tell you is that you do not have to change everything at once. Start with the proteins. Start with eliminating seed oils. Start with swapping one processed thing for one real thing. And let your body show you the results. Because once you feel the difference, you will not want to go back. I love this community so deeply, and I will see you in the next one.